At this stage, we've come very far in our photography journey, and I hope that you are seeing that you can do so much with your smartphone photography and that it can really unlock your creative potential. But our photography can also lead us to business opportunities. It's something that we can consider making a career for ourselves, even if we just want to supplement our own photography by putting our money back into our photography to allow us to invest in more equipment and, most importantly, to invest in ourselves. So throughout this lesson, I'm going to show you how you can consider making a little bit of money from your photography. There's not as much involved to it as you may think, and you never know, it might actually be becoming your full-time profession. My name is William Eames and welcome back to the Smartphone Photography course. Now, so hard to believe that we're on our final lesson of module 2 already. So we're going to have a look at how you can start a photography business. We'll have a look at a lot more than just starting a business as well. So if you have no intentions of making money with your photography, if you are merely doing this for the love and for the passion of photography, I'll have a look at how you can stay motivated and how you can stay inspired as well, because it is one of the trickier things to do with photography as we go on. I find photography goes in almost like waves. You've got peaks and troughs. It goes up and down. Sometimes you're riding high and you love your photography, and sometimes it's really frustrating and it's really difficult, and sometimes it can be difficult to get back into it and ride those waves again. So I want to show you how you can overcome that if you ever find that you hit a block as well. So first off though, we're going to have a look at how you can get up and running with a business. And what you might find is that with your photography, with your smartphone photography, that when you show that you're interested in doing more with your photography, that a lot of people will actually sit up and take notice, and they might start asking you to do some little bits of work for them, whether that's just photographing a family gathering, perhaps something's coming up, a little event like a graduation, a christening, a birthday, anything like that, and they might ask you to take the pictures for it. And that is how you can get started with the business of photography. You start local and it builds from there. So starting a business, there's quite a bit to consider before you can actually get out there and start putting yourself out there and start making money. So the first thing is, why would you want to start a business? Why would you want to get into this career? And let me tell you, it is not an easy career. It is a very glamorous career. It's a very attractive career for people, and I have to say it's one of the reasons why I got into photography in the first place. I had these ideas that I'd be traveling the world photographing these incredible people and these incredible places, but the reality is that it's quite different. You're going to start quite local, and sure, some of us may end up with these really kind of trendy jet-setting lifestyles, but the majority of photographers will need to eke a living working, doing every type of job that comes to them, and eventually will carve out their niche. So there's a lot of pros to starting a photography business. First of all, you're going to make money using a skill that you already enjoy. We're probably all very familiar with that saying, do a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. So, you're going to be doing something that you really enjoy, and it's creative as well. It'll allow you to take advantage of flexible schedule because you're going to be working for yourself. So you can work full time, or perhaps you might do jobs at the weekend, so you can use it as a supplementary income. So you can keep your full-time job. You can do a little bit of work at the weekend on and off as well, like a lot of photographers will. You will absolutely meet new people, and you're going to be attending lots of events. That's one of the big advantages of being a photographer, is that you will end up in situations and scenarios that you probably wouldn't normally end up in, in your day-to-day job, depending on what you do. So, it's really cool to get out there and to meet new people and have exciting opportunities. You absolutely can also target people, that you want to for locations you want to visit. A close photography friend of mine, she's based in Dublin, but she actually travels throughout Europe to photograph weddings. So she kind of puts her work out there to be quite international, and she ends up in these very kind of, like in Italy and Spain, photographing these incredible weddings. So you can think about that globally as well. Photography doesn't just have to be local. It doesn't just have to be in your own area. There's huge potential to target people all over the world. You can also help capture people's special moments. You're creating memories for people. You're capturing memories for them. These images that they're going to look back on in their lifetime and, future generations as well. And that's, quite a burden in one way, but it's also pretty amazing when you think about it. You're also going to be working with other creatives. So you'll be working with other people like makeup artists and designers, and the money that you earn can be put back into your photography. So you can invest in, say, a better phone, you can invest in better lenses, better accessories, better laptop, and so on. So you're putting your money back into your work. Now, of course, there is a downside to it as well. Like everything, there's an up and down. It can be very expensive to start up, if you're investing in a new phone, or perhaps you do want to invest and go and purchase a DSLR camera, so there's a little bit of investment required, for getting yourself set up with the right equipment. Stressful events like weddings can bring out the negative side of customers. So remember, you are dealing with people. And if you've ever worked in like retail or anything, face to face with people, it can be quite stressful dealing with people who are a little bit irate, a little bit upset as well. And particularly when you're working in something quite high pressure, like a wedding, when, you have to get things right. You've only got one opportunity to get it right. So it can be quite difficult. You need to learn people skills and management skills. Work engagements will often take place at the weekends. So if you've got a family, particularly if you've got a young family, it can be difficult because you're working around people. Again, things like weddings and so on, they are going to happen at the weekend more than likely, and obviously that's going to impact on your own personal life. So you need to take account of this as well, that you're going to be working hours that are a little bit unsociable compared to a standard 9-to-5 job. Income can be inconsistent as well. It can take time to build up a solid clientele list. So, word of mouth is still one of the most powerful things when it comes to getting photography work, and clients will generally always stick with you. If you do a good job for them, they'll usually come back to you when they've got a future job, rather than kind of having the hassle of trying to find somebody else to do it. So there can be consistent income streams from that, but it will take time to build that up. And sometimes when you're doing your hobby as a business, to make this your career, it can take a lot of the fun out of it. It can turn something boring and into tedious work. And that's where the balance can get a little bit tricky. So the way, a lot of photographers work, including myself, I will do my jobs, my weddings, my events and so on. Obviously I teach as well, but I will always put that into my creative part of my photography. For me, all of these jobs that I do, while I enjoy them as well, they will always come back to the bottom line, which is that I want to do my own creative work. And so I invest my money into myself and the work that I do. So that gives it a balance. So I know that sometimes if I can get frustrated on the business side of it, that it's balanced out by the creative side of it as well. So when you've thought about the pros and cons and you decide that you want to go forward with your photography, the next thing is to plan out your vision. Plan out what it is that you want to do. So like any other business, you need to think about what each step it takes to achieve your goals. So the hardest part is knowing where to begin when it comes to photography. And I always recommend that you start local. See what's going on around you. To give you an idea, give you an example, myself, I started getting into photography by doing sports photography originally. So this is all the way back when I was still in secondary school. I was around 16, still shooting on film at the time, and a local football team, their supporters club, were looking for a photographer. So I started doing the photography for them, and that's how I started. That's how I got into it. That's how I, learned the business of it. It was a bit of a baptism of fire. I was really thrown into the deep end, but I got up and running. And you overcome these issues. You learn problem solving on the way, but plan it out. Think about what you want to achieve. I've always said, It's good to have a plan. Things generally don't go according to plan, but it's good to have something to come back to remember what it is that you are trying to achieve. Next thing is, of course, you're going to have to think about your budgeting. And when it comes to budgeting, you're going to obviously need to invest a little bit in your equipment, getting yourself set up. Most importantly, though, you're investing in yourself. Okay, you're investing in things like education and your own skills, because ultimately, this is what's going to help you to get ahead and to separate yourself and make yourself stand out from all the other photographers that are out there. Photography costs money. Starting a business costs money. There's lots of expenses to consider. So you try to break it down. You start off by what you need, what you want, and what would be nice. So need is things that are essential, things that you can't live without, like camera, like your smartphone, like lenses. Those things are going to be things that you really, really need. Then maybe things that you want. So perhaps like a macro lens. Maybe you're like, I'd really like a macro lens. I think it'll allow me to do a little bit more with my photography. But think about it. Is that going to be something that's going to help you to make lots of money straight away? So I'd put that as a want. And then you've got would be nice. So would be nice would be, say you've got a laptop that you're working on at the moment. It's a perfectly fine laptop, but you want to get a better one for yourself. You want to maybe go with a Mac or something like that. That would be a would be nice. If you've got something that's working for you right now, continue using this until you're in a position where you can actually spend that money on upgrading. So I would break it down into 3 separate areas when it comes to photography business in terms of what you should be looking at. So first of all, you've got your needs. You're going to need lenses. You may need lights, depending on if you're doing food, studio photography. You're going to need a hard drive for sure for your photographs, because you're going to be taking a lot of photographs. You definitely need somewhere to store them. You're going to have lots of memory cards. You may have lots of memory in your phone as it is, but it's a good idea to have backups for sure. You're going to need some type of laptop or desktop or something to edit your photographs on. And a camera bag or some type of carrying case or something like that for all of your your equipment. Thankfully, when it comes to using smartphones, you're not going to be needing to carry around as much as if you were using a DSLR camera. Then you've got your editing softwares, you've got your websites, you've got your education, like us. You're investing in your education. Things like apps, you may download particular apps that you want to use, but you may need to spend some money on them. And perhaps you're going to work with a designer rather than trying to design your own website, perhaps rather than trying to design your own logos and so on. You might find that you want to hire somebody to do that for you. Now, what I would say to you is that, if you're doing this course, you are a member of Shaw Academy, you have access to a huge number of courses here. You can learn to do all of this yourself. I mean, all of it, because we cover so much. And I'll speak about that a little bit more as we go on. Then you're kind of into the final category, which is marketing, this is an area where it can become tricky for people who are more creative and maybe less kind of business minded, and I certainly find, again, with photographers, I know photographers who are amazing photographers but have no idea how to get themselves out there, have no interest in marketing themselves, where I know photographers who are experts at marketing and they get all the work because they know how to reach out to people. So marketing is something that you will need to learn. You're going to need to put insurance on your equipment, insurance on yourself, insurance on your laptop, things like that as well. Business cards, you want to print off business cards so when you meet people, you can give them a card. You may need to rent office space. Perhaps it's not going to be something that you can do from home, or maybe you just need to get out of your home so that you can put yourself in a space that will allow you to work. If you're no good with money, you might need to look at hiring someone to help with your accounting, and you might also decide to go with representation. Now, representation is a bit of a difficult area. It's certainly something to talk about, further down the line, but you can get representation from photography reps, and they will basically try to find you work, but it is really expensive. So representation is it can be very profitable, if you're at the top of your game, but it's very competitive as well, because obviously photography reps will have other clients that could be paying more, and they're going to prioritize them. So it can be a little bit of a tricky area. But if you find you're having difficulty getting work, or you're trying to find work in a particular area, you may look at going with representation. Now, on the subject of costs, a question I get asked about all the time is, how should I charge? How much should I charge clients? And this is really going to depend on a number of factors. It's going to depend on where you are, so your location, your skill set, so how skilled you are, and competitors. So the first thing to do is to research what else is going on in your area in terms of photography. See who else is photographing in your area, what type of photography they're doing, and what type of packages and price they are offering. So you're going to want to align yourself with those types of prices. Obviously, you may come in slightly lower, again, depending on your skill set and your own ability, and of course to try and attract clients as well. But don't undervalue yourself. Okay, so this is where a lot of photographers will find issue, is that they charge too little, and they find that only after doing the job that they ended up charging far too little. And it's a difficult area for any kind of creative where they take on something, they don't realize exactly what's involved, and the client suddenly pushes up their demands, and you find that you have not charged anywhere near enough for what they're asking for, and you can't raise your price. Client is going to say, no, we agreed on that price, that's how much I'm going to pay. So you need to make sure that you get it right at the start. And that can be difficult when you're beginning out, especially when you're trying to justify to a client how much you're charging them. But it's a good idea to just talk to them about exactly what you're going to do, the amount of work that's involved. And remember, photographing, the actual act of photographing, it's only a small part of the work. A lot of the work will actually come afterwards as well. So once you're aligned with expectations, there should be no problem on the price. It's also a good idea to get deposits as well for very large jobs. Now, also factor in, of course, your expenses. So, if you have to travel, do think about that too, because these are things that, you don't want to be having coming out of your own pocket. Get as much information as possible, and then you can determine your price based on that. It's a difficult one for me to answer. Unfortunately, I can't give you an exact figure because every job is different. And more than likely, you may find that you're undervaluing yourself at the start, but you'll very quickly learn what's the right price for you. It's better to overvalue yourself, because you can always come down in price, but you can never go back up in price. Okay, so trust me, that's a lesson I think every photographer will learn on the way. Now, some tips as well when you're starting off: network. Speak to other people, speak to other creatives. When you're at a party, you meet somebody new, you get talking to them about what you do, keep in touch with them. If there's someone that you feel could be potentially very useful, or you could do something for them, absolutely get in touch with them. Connect with them on Facebook, connect with them on Instagram, become friends with them, or make it very clear that you intend to maybe work with them in a kind of business relationship. Give them a card, just network to them. Or if you are working online and you see somebody's work you like, reach out to them, tell them you really like their work, and if you want to maybe potentially work with them, first of all, ask them, would they be open to that, and then maybe share some of your work with them to kind of open up that conversation. Find a niche. So many photographers, as I mentioned at the start, they will start off their photography by photographing, lots of different areas to begin with. Now, like I said, for myself, I started off doing sports. I don't do sports anymore. Although, I still probably would do it if someone were to say to me, can you do this? But generally, I would stay away from doing that type of work. And I do kind of more traditional jobs like weddings, and teaching is a massive part of my income as well. But you may find a niche as you continue on. Like, for example, the amount of students that have come through my courses, and they would say to me, I want to get into photography, but I don't know what to do. And I would talk to them about who they are, what their hobbies are, and what's maybe local to them that isn't traditional. So, like, for example, I had a student in Dubai, and I was like, oh, Dubai, cool. There's lots of cool cars over there. People spend, on their money on cars. They get into car racing, and he was like, "Oh, I'm really into that." And I was like, "Well, why don't you go to your local racetrack and get talking to people there?" And he ended up photographing all the drivers and their cars, and he got into his photography that way. So think about that. If you're into horse riding, again, we get a lot of people who do equestrian photography because they know horses, and it can be difficult working with the horses, but they end up photographing them and they find a niche. So think about that as well. Think about something that you're interested apart from photography that you can marry your photography to. Moving on from that, there are some areas that you can work in photography if you are, struggling. Weddings would be the most obvious one, are also the most lucrative one. Stock photography, we'll speak about that in a moment. PR work, working for companies, commercial work like advertisements, real estate is a huge area, particularly in the States. So, we get loads of students coming from the US who are realtors, and they're doing their own photography, when they're selling their houses. If you're doing that, maybe, you can expand your business a little bit and have a photography real estate company as well. Pet photography, huge area now as well. Moving on, glamour photography, always consistent. Sports, as I mentioned, probably a bit trickier to do with your smartphones, admittedly. But the rest of these can all be done with your smartphones. Architectural photography, journalism, food, music, celebrity, fashion. You might just print your photography. You might make your income by selling your prints, although admittedly that's incredibly difficult in this day and age. And you may just make your money from entering contests, which is actually a lucrative area as well. Again, I'll speak about that in a little bit later on in this lesson, but it is actually possible to make your living or at least supplement your photography by entering contests and winning or placing in them, because often there's cash prizes involved in competitions. You want to take a marketing course. I strongly recommend that you have a look at our marketing courses. Have a look at our social media marketing course taught by Jess, very much suited for photographers, because you're going to be doing a lot of your work through Facebook. You're going to be doing a lot of your work through Instagram, obviously in particular. So, Jess covers those areas in greater detail. If you're looking for something a little bit more in-depth, a little bit more detailed, perhaps you're already a marketer and you just want to upskill, check out Laura's digital marketing course, which kind of really goes deeper into marketing, in a much broader sense, and looking at how you can manage your budgets when it comes to marketing budgets and so on. They're both really in-depth, informative courses. Check them out. You have access to them as a member of Shaw Academy. So have a look at those courses. It's not just a plug for them. They will genuinely help you out and get you, if you don't know where to start with marketing at all, they will get you started. You want to work with others. This is kind of similar to networking, but for a long time I was working here in Dublin with an artist, a performance artist. Now she does so much work. She's still going, and we did loads of work together. We clicked. We did a lot of photography together. She liked that I was shooting on film at the time, so it kind of gave my work a little bit of a different look compared to a lot of the other photographers out there in Dublin. And we got published. We got lots of work out there. I didn't get paid for it, but I didn't care because I was getting my work seen by people, and for me that was far more valuable at the time. So work with others, work with other creatives, and it can absolutely open doors for you as well. And it'll also help you to build up a portfolio. Set up social media for your business. So we all have our Instagrams and that, but you should have a separate one for your photography business. Keep it separate from your personal page. So you might have your own page for your own work, but you should have a separate one then for your photography business. Okay, the two shouldn't really meet. You can obviously link one to the other. You can link to your personal page from your business page and vice versa, but you should try and keep them separate. Okay, so it's important that there's kind of your professional life, your business life, and your private and personal life are kept separate when it comes to business. Create a brand for yourself, a photography brand. obviously a lot more involved in this. Check out our graphic design course. Anna-Marie will absolutely help you out there when it comes to creating a brand for yourself, and designing logo and designing something that's eye-catching. And again, this will very much kind of depend on the type of photography that you want to do. You may want to make a brand that is kind of in line with the kind of people, the target audience that you're after, and the type of photography that you're hoping to do. And again, market. And you'll see this certainly everywhere when it comes online to starting a business. Marketing will give you return. And it's something that I've learned very much when working here. So I've worked here now for quite some time, and no clue about marketing whatsoever. But from seeing the marketing team work here and how they work, marketing will pay off if you invest in it. But you also still need to have some idea of what you're doing too. So this will be something that will happen down the line when your business is kind of a little bit more up and running and you've got some money coming in from it. If you invest in marketing, it will absolutely help you to gain more work and more clients. Now, if you are looking to make money from your photography and you don't really want to go this business type of route, you may consider stock photography and selling your work online. So there's a huge number of websites you could have a look at to upload your photographs. So these websites generally are going to work on the idea that they will take some type of commission from your photographs. Okay, so you upload them onto the site. If that photograph is used, they will take a royalty from that, and you get whatever's left over. Now, I mean, I've never actually done this myself, to be perfectly honest. Some photographers make a huge living from this, and again, you're kind of finding your niche. Maybe you just do landscape type of photographs, and maybe you just do, portraits and so on. But I recommend that you check out stock photography online. Have a look at these websites, have a look at their kind of terms and conditions, and you might try to sell a photograph on them, and you can make a return on that. And I mean, how you earn on this is basically dependent on how many times someone downloads and uses your photograph. So someone like Shutterstock, which we use in these lessons, so many of the images that I use throughout this course are from Shutterstock. They're probably the top ones, really. They just have a huge database of millions and millions of photographs, and you'd be surprised at how often someone will download the same type of image. So definitely worth considering as well. Have a look at these sites. As I mentioned, these are kind of the top ones out there, and see if there's any that kind of appeal to you, and you may sign up and try to sell some of your work through stock photography. Now, so moving away from the kind of setting up your business side of things, one of the other things you're going to need to do is to attract clients, and attracting clients is going to be really dependent on the quality of your photography. And I mean, you're not going to do yourself any favors if you don't present your work correctly. You could be the most skilled photographer out there, but if you don't know how to show your work, it's not going to help you out at all. So let's have a look at how you can present your work to clients. So the first thing is to build yourself a portfolio. So you've got two options. You should print off your portfolio, and you should have an online portfolio as well. Printing off a portfolio is still important in this day and age, because you may still go directly to clients, and they will want to see, and they will absolutely expect you to have a printed portfolio as well as an online one. Printed ones you bring to clients, it adds a greater level of professionalism, and it's just always something that's consistent and constant in photography. Online will be used to generate interest, business, and update regularly with new photos. So your portfolio, your printed one, will be a little bit more consistent, and you may not swap out the photographs as often as compared to an online one, where you might update it quite frequently to show how you're keeping up your photography. And an online one will absolutely allow for more options in terms of presentation, but printed ones allow for a better narrative and a better communication of your vision as a photographer. Because when it comes to a printed portfolio, you're deciding how someone views that portfolio. Where online, it can be a little bit different depending on the layout of your website. You're also going to think about who's your audience. So putting a portfolio together, you should absolutely be thinking about what type of photography you want to do. What kind of portfolio is it? Is it for business? Is it for art? So maybe you're putting a portfolio together to get into college, which, you know, absolutely I've done. You're going to create a completely different type of portfolio for that compared to if you're trying to attract a business client. Who is the client and what are their needs? So, you know, if you're working for trying to attract someone to photograph food, obviously you're going to put food in your portfolio. You're not going to put architectural shots in your portfolio. So again, think about what type of photographs you put in based on their needs. Have you got the right type of photographs? And consider having multiple portfolios. So you might have different portfolios for different needs. So you might have a portrait portfolio, you might have a food portfolio, you might have a pet photography portfolio, because these are all areas that you want to work in. You may have a studio photography portfolio which has all of these types of images in it to show that you can do multiple things within the studio. Consider showing some sample photographs as well, of different type of work. So and I've heard many stories of this. So say if there's a bit of crossover in the type of photography you want to do. So, if you're doing fashion or you want to get into fashion, you might show that you do conceptual photography, that you do more artistic type of photography because it shows creativity. And in fashion world, there's definitely a blurring of the lines between fine art photography and fashion photography at an editorial level. So you may put in a couple of other types of photographs that show this, that you're capable of thinking beyond just kind of traditional fashion photographs and doing something a little bit more creative and a little bit more experimental. Now, in our street and documentary photography lesson, we talked about having themes to our photographs, and the exact same can be done for our portfolios as well. Is there a theme to your portfolio? Is there a narrative in your photographs? Do they tell a story? Do they work together? Are your photos moody or cold or light and warm? There should be a consistency in your style. You can of course put both types in as well once you have a reason for it, not just for the sake of putting it in. There should always be a reason behind why your shots are in there, not just, oh, I like that photograph. It should work in the wider context of your work. Make sure you have a strong start and end. So when people are looking at portfolios, they are generally going to obviously pay very close attention to your first photograph. That's your first impression, and you want to leave on a strong lasting impression, I should say, at the end as well. So likely, someone might end up kind of quickly going through your middle photographs. Don't get disheartened. That's usually just the way it goes, but you definitely want to have a strong photograph at the end to make sure that they remember it. And to do your photographs, demonstrate your full range of skills. So make sure that you, as well as being creative with your portfolio, that you do demonstrate your technical ability as well, so that they, so that the person is in absolutely no doubt that you can take a good photograph. Because sometimes people just want a good photograph. They don't really want the creative side of it. They just want something that looks professionally done. And do you have examples of your post-production abilities? So perhaps not as important, I'd say, if you were going for a role where post-production is going to be the majority of the work that you're going to be doing, but you do want to demonstrate that you can do some editing to your photographs as well, because a client again may want something or somebody who can do all of everything in one, so that you can manage a project from start to end, so that you can create a team, create a concept, photograph it, and then do all the post-production work at the end, so that you have a final finished product. Now, with our portfolios, how many photographs? This is one again I get asked all the time. It will of course be dependent on the purpose and the client, but I can say that 15 to 25 photographs is optimal. You shouldn't have less than that. You definitely shouldn't have more than 25. Even 25 is kind of pushing it to the upper limit. any more than that, and people are just going, their eyes will glaze over. They won't pay attention to what you're showing them. So 15, 20, 25 at a push if you need to show, for some reason, if you need to show more. But I would be aiming in and around that amount of photographs. Now, a client may want to ask, or may ask to see more, based on that initial kind of portfolio. But a printed portfolio, that is the way you should be going. Now, it can be more as well, so if you included it, say you make an extra little book or an extra little montage of photographs, you present it over 2 pages. So, if there's more that you want to show, or perhaps, you've done a little magazine spread or something like that with lots of pictures in it, you can, of course, put that into the portfolio as well. The client brief may have a number of required photographs, so quite often if you're applying for a job that they are looking for a photographer, they may ask to see particular examples and styles of work with a set amount of photographs as well. So of course you will have to meet that brief. And remember, quality over quantity. Don't make up the numbers with average photographs. Pick your absolute best photographs and make sure that they are presented properly as well, and don't just put in a load of shots just for the sake of it. You definitely want to be putting quality in over quantity. If you feel that you've got a photograph that's slightly weaker, it could bring all the other photographs down because it will stand out as a poor shot compared to the rest. So you need to make sure that everything is nice and consistent. Someone might go through your portfolio and say, that's a great shot, and sometimes that's not always what you want to hear, because they might be, that one stands out compared to the rest of the photographs. So if someone's going through a portfolio and they're quite silent, that's actually usually perhaps a good sign, because they're taking in all of the work rather than just focusing on one image. And at least include one finished project. So show that you can see one project from start to finish. Again, think back to our narrative within our documentary photography. Something like that. Your portfolio, a section of your portfolio can be made up of a project. So you might set aside 5 photographs that are going to be a little narrative of images that work together, to show that you have that ability to make images and make a photograph project that works as a final finished piece. Now, you can absolutely have a website as well for your portfolio. Websites are very straightforward to use. You will have to invest a little bit of money in them, but there's a lot of preset websites out there like Wix, Squarespace, Format, WordPress, SmugMug, Adobe Portfolio, or you can of course build your own. And websites like Wix, Squarespace, they have a lot of templates that you can use, that you can begin to start uploading your photographs with. They're very customizable, so you can really change them to suit your own needs, your own style. I use Format myself. Format's quite a clean, contemporary look to it. It's very simple to use, but you will need to pay, of course, for your subscription for the year for it to use it, and you will also need to get yourself a domain name as well. So that all these websites will help you out with that too. So you are going to be paying probably about up to $100 for both those things. So that's together. So your domain name shouldn't cost you you're probably maybe $15-20, maybe even less, and then the actual website hosting, you're probably going to be looking in and around $60-70. Again, it might be a little bit more depending on the website, the one that you go with. Now, if you're trying to use one for free, WordPress, they do free ones, but your domain name will have WordPress in it. But it's a great way to get started, and WordPress is also great for doing blogs as well. If you want to build your own, definitely check out our web design course and our web development course. The web design course will be more suited for building kind of portfolio type of websites. Kate goes through from start to finish how you can build your own website through learning coding, which is also, of course, a hugely valuable skill as well to have in this day and age, the ability to be able to code. Now, when you build a website, you can promote it then as well. So you can use SEO, search engine optimization, which is something you can happen through Google, using certain keywords to promote your website, so that when someone searches say photography, wedding photography, that yours is going to come up higher in the list. So you can use search engine optimization. Remember, most people will view websites on their phones. So if you're building your own one, make sure it is formatted correctly for this as well. Most of these kind of pre-made websites that you're kind of customizing, they'll have this kind of tackled already. So it's not something that you need to worry about. But if you are building one from scratch, you definitely need to make sure it's formatted correctly. And some investment will be needed here again. So again, this is part of our budgeting. You are going to need to pay a little bit for promotion, but the gains are absolutely worth it. Now, more than likely, most people are going to go and initially visit, say, something like your Facebook or your Instagram page, but you should have a link to your website so that they will go and check that out. And that's where your projects, where your portfolio and everything should be, more information about you. It should be more professional. Now, of course, we also have our social media options. Facebook, which is going to be essential for business. So Facebook is still, the biggest kind of pages for pushing the business. Instagram, of course, as we've spoken about in great detail. Flickr is also great for community. So if you want to get in touch with other photographers, Flickr is very much designed for people to share their work with other photographers and get in touch with people that way. Pinterest is great for inspiration. I use Pinterest, if I'm trying to come up with a new project, I will have a look at what's going on Pinterest. It can be great to kind of get a certain kind of look that you're after in terms of, say, you want a certain color palette to your work. You might, or a certain theme to your work. You might see what other people are doing on Pinterest. Tumblr, Behance, and YouPic, these are all kind of photo sharing sites to have a look at as well. But your Facebook is definitely going to be essential for business, and you should have a separate page for your photography. It shouldn't be your own personal page. It should be a special dedicated page that you've created for your business. Now, so hopefully with those tips, they will help you to get started. Let's have a quick check-in on our skills. So we are at the end of this module. So we have absolutely filled out all of our skill set up to this stage. So that's very, very impressive. We now are very advanced with our technical vocabulary, our creative and our editing and advanced skills. So big well done to you, because think about how far you have come since that first lesson. I mean, when I began to teach this course, when smartphone photography really began to start growing, and really kind of taking over the market, I never expected that you'd be able to do all of these things that you can now with your smartphone. I mean, there's no difference between using your smartphone and using your DSLR, apart from the obvious kind of ergonomic differences and that. But you can achieve so much now with just what's in your pocket that it's absolutely incredible. Of course, it's just a case of knowing how to use it, and you now have a very, very solid understanding of how to use your phones for better photography, that you're at an intermediate level now, which is far beyond what the majority of people are able to do, and the majority of people, their level with their smartphone photography. So I hope that you've really, really gained so much from this course, but we're still only halfway there. We still have a little bit left to go, and looking forward to as what's coming up in our next module. Our next module is going to be all about, in the next lesson, but in the next module as well, we're going to talk all about video for your smartphone. So obviously video is such a huge part of our smartphone photography as well. We have the ability to capture, create amazing videos through our smartphones too. So the next module is going to be dedicated to all of that. Storytelling through video, and there's so many cool things that we're going to learn. So I do hope that you will join me for that. Now, so to finish out this module, to finish out this lesson, let's have a quick look at doing more with your photography. So one of the things that I find can happen when you actually learn more about your photography, sometimes you can get a little bit disheartened. Sometimes you can feel like maybe you're not good enough. Sometimes you just get a little bit fatigued from it and you get stuck for inspiration. So I want to give you some ideas that perhaps will help to motivate you. Maybe you've no interest in doing business with your photography, but there's still plenty of other things that you can do, personal goals that you can set, and that will help you to feel like you've achieved certain milestones with your work. So first of all, one thing I'd recommend that you check out is entering competitions. So competitions are actually a way of making a little bit of money from your photography as well. There's hundreds or thousands of competitions globally every year. A great website to check out, photocontestguru.com. They list all the upcoming photo competitions that are out there globally, and of course you can enter these globally, because you can submit these from anywhere in the world. Photocrowd.com is for public competitions, so run by locals and so on in certain areas. You can check that out as well. Instagram do monthly challenges too. Now some competitions will have an entry fee, certainly on Photo Contest Guru, but you can really win huge prizes on these. So prizes can be new gear or cash prizes, and you can land a career from it and gain international recognition. Now, that last point might seem like a pipe dream, but I remember years ago going to see a Canon ambassador. I was working for a camera shop at the time, so they sent us on this kind of thing for Canon, and it turned out to be great actually, because he was a wildlife photographer who he had a special interest in bats. He loved photographing bats, and at certain times of the year, when all these kind of bats came together, it was incredible work. But basically, he got recognized because he would enter his work into competitions. He'd win them, he'd get cash prizes, and he'd use that to fund his next trip, to capture these bats again. And Canon saw this, of course, they saw his work, and then he ended up becoming an ambassador for them, so they supplied all his equipment, so it is possible that you can actually end up making quite a career from yourself from entering competitions. And you'd also be surprised at, you may not win your first time unless you're very lucky, but you may place in one of the categories. Often there's lots of different categories in these competitions, and you might place in them and you might get a small prize, or you might just get a little bit of recognition, which will certainly give you that confidence to go ahead and do more with your photography. So strongly recommend to check that out. Exhibit your work. So this is one, when I think about photography, this is always kind of, I suppose, my ultimate goal with my own work is to have my work shown in galleries. And I tell you, there's nothing quite like the feeling of it when you get your work up on the wall. When you've done a lot of work, you've put a lot of time and effort into it, you put it up on the wall, and other people come and see it, and they spend time with it. Showing work in galleries is very different from just showing it online or showing it on Instagram. People take more time with it. When you're in a museum or you're in a gallery, you're coming to see something that's a little bit different, that's obviously got a little bit more significance to it than something that's just posted up onto Instagram. So a good way to do this is to start with local photography groups. Competitions are also great as well, because sometimes if you place in these competitions, they will actually have exhibitions, so your work could actually be seen internationally, with these kind of competitions as well. You can show one photograph. Again, it depends on the nature of the exhibition, or you could show a series of photographs. It's also a great opportunity to sell some prints, or if you've created a book of your work as well. That's a good way. Is through exhibitions. So I definitely check that out as well. On that, you can create a photo book of your own work. You can actually do this through Lightroom, not through the Lightroom app at this stage, but you can certainly do it through Lightroom CC Classic. Blurb.com is also another way to do it if you haven't got access to that. And it's great because you can just upload your photographs onto it. They have a huge amount of designs, but they're also incredibly customizable as well. And it's brilliant to get one of these in the post. So you work away on it, you create this little book, and it comes in the post, and you feel like you've created something that has significance. So definitely check out creating a book using blurb.com, or you can do it through Lightroom as well. We cover how to do it in lesson 7 on my Lightroom course. But think about what story you want to tell through your book, or even if it's just creating a family album, definitely check it out, creating a photo book too. Visit galleries. So maybe you don't want to get your own work on a wall, but it is important to go and see what other people are doing. It's a good idea to get a context, in the wider world of photography and not just what's happening online. So going to visit galleries, you can kind of see, I suppose, what artists are doing. It's a great way to get inspired. It's a great way to learn how photos work together. So looking at other work, not even just one photographer's work, but when you go into a gallery that's showing, different works from, say, different photographers, you'll see how it's curated. So obviously, there's curators involved in galleries as well. And it's important to understand how different works can come together to create an exhibition as well. So you can kind of think about how your own work fits into a wider context, fits into the wider world of photography. And it's just a great way to see what other people are doing and how they present their work, and give you inspiration as well, and give you a little bit of peace of mind. Take a photography trip. So if you're really stuck for inspiration, it's a good idea to plan a trip. That we've spoken about this before. Just go and travel somewhere to take photographs. You can find these dedicated photography trips. They are out there where it's just purely made for photographers to go and visit certain locations, certain cities, and all kind of get there together to take photographs. So you're purely going for taking photographs. You're going to meet loads of other photographers. It's going to be great from all over the world, and you're going to give yourself something to remember forever. So think about that too, taking a dedicated photography trip. You can do this through joining a camera club as well. So lots of local camera clubs out there too. You can become part of a community of photographers. It's a great way to learn how other people approach photography too. And these clubs will organize photography trips as well. Sometimes they'll bring in speakers and do workshops as well. So definitely check them out in your local area. Google camera clubs, wherever you're from. I guarantee you're going to find them. So do check that out as well. And if you want to set yourself a personal goal, shoot a wedding or event, even if you only do it once, the experience is great, because you will really see what it's like to work in a high pressure situation as a professional photographer. Now, you can shadow a photographer, so if you're worried about doing this on your own, you can always reach out to professionals who are working and say, look, I just want a little bit of experience. You don't have to pay me anything. I just want to come along, do some supplementary photography for you, and you may need to work out the usage on the photographs. You're probably going to have to hand them over as part of the package as well, but it's like I said, it's a great way to get an idea of working in a really high pressure situation, because weddings in particular, it's hard to think of anything that is more high pressure and that will absolutely push you to your limits in terms of all your skill sets as a photographer. And try to sell a photograph online. Now, this is a tough one for any photographer. It's really, really hard to do this. In my personal experience, anyway, I have done it, but it's not something that happens very, very frequently. But look to the stock websites like I spoke about earlier on. You can upload some photographs onto that to try and sell some images. But you can also look to local fairs and flea markets, things like that. Where you might set up a little stall and sell some images that way. You can check out Etsy as well, Etsy.com, a website for creatives, I should say, to sell their work. So you may be able to sell something through that. You can use your own website, or you could try to get a photo published. So send photographs to local newspapers and journalists. And if you're out there photographing, say, an early morning sunrise with some wildlife there, local newspapers love those types of photographs, especially, if it shows something in the local area. So think about that too. Think about local newspapers, local publications, local magazines and try to get your images published in them as well. Now, so that is the end of our lesson, and indeed the end of module number 2. So well done on completing it. Just a quick reminder of what's coming up in module 3 lesson 1. We're going to have a look at the basics of video on our smartphones. So we'll have a look at how we can get up and running with video and what we can do with it, and we'll progress on to how you can really create incredible stories just using your smartphone. So well done on completing module number 2. I do hope that you've enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. If you have any questions or any feedback or anything like that after this module, please email us at support@shawacademy.com. Now I do have a challenge for you. It's a trickier challenge for sure, but an important one nonetheless. So for your challenge for this one, I want you to put a portfolio together. So this one can be a short one. I'd like to see you try to create a small portfolio of maybe 5 to 10 photographs to get you started thinking about how you might put a portfolio together. So have a look at the tips, have a look at the things I spoke about in this lesson, take them into account. I really want you to think about it and remember to choose your absolute best photographs and how they can all work together. So it is a tougher challenge, but I think you're well ready for it at this stage. And if you think about it, you have been building up towards this portfolio throughout this course so far. So if you have been participating in the challenges at the end of every lesson, you're going to have quite an amount of photographs already that you can choose from. So put a portfolio together and share it with us at Shaw Smart Photo on Twitter and Instagram, and best of luck with it. So congratulations once again on completing module number 2. It's great to see that we're halfway through the 4 modules now, and we've come a long way already. Just think about how far your own photography has progressed. So I'm going to leave it there for now, and I will talk to you all again very soon at the start of module number 3. So until then, as always, take care of yourselves and bye bye.